If we put in a guaranteed livable basic income program, it will pay for itself and has the potential to reduce poverty rates up to 50% in Canada.
Canadians may be closer than ever to receiving universal basic income payments. But will it help society, or could it lead us down a dangerous path? So you may or may not be aware of Bill S-206. The bill claims that every Canadian deserves a livable income, one that would end poverty, improve health and education, and give people dignity and security, all while helping the economy adapt to modern challenges like climate change and unstable jobs. That's their words, not mine. Aside from the challenges of the climate change part, I think on the surface level, most people would agree. Last week, the bill passed second reading in the Senate. A few more steps, then it will head to the House of Commons, where MPs will tweak it, accept it, or kill it. This isn't a let's study it bill. This is the framework for implementation. And UBI isn't a new idea. Manitoba ran a test of their Mincome in the 70s. Ontario did a UBI pilot program in 2017. And dare I say, the CERB benefits in 2020 were basically a national temporary UBI experiment. UBI talk is louder than ever now because of disruptions from AI in the job market, unaffordable housing, rising costs of living, and a shrinking middle class. People who once had decent lives making decent money are now scraping by. So the idea of a guaranteed check every month would probably sound appealing to citizens. They'd probably give the Liberal Party a praise, and this may be the government's idea of throwing a band-aid solution to the problems we have in this country. Here's the major argument being made for UBI.
Senator Pate.
Honourable colleagues, the latest research reveals that Canada spends upwards of $92 billion per year paying for measures that keep people stuck in poverty instead of investing in approaches that would allow them to rebound. Canada spends billions policing access and monitoring recipients of social assistance schemes that provides too little. We also spend billions on emergency health treatment for people who lack housing, health care, and food security, as well as the resources to treat preventable health conditions, and on jail cells filled with those who are poor, homeless, and dealing with mental health and addiction issues. We lose billions in undeveloped economic capacity and on tax revenue from those we have ignored instead of including and empowering. It is difficult to fathom the full human, social, and financial implications of poverty. I acknowledge that those our governments choose to abandon are disproportionately women, Indigenous and Black peoples, and others who are racialized, as well as persons with disabilities.
She claims we already spend $92 billion keeping people in poverty instead of getting them out. Policing, monitoring welfare, treating preventable diseases, jailing the homeless or addicted. Now, I can't find the exact study she's referencing. Maybe it's not released publicly. But I think the numbers may be a bit misleading or skewed, because handing every adult, say, $2,000 a month doesn't magically fix these problems. It doesn't fix homelessness, mental illness, or addiction. If I'm on the street smoking rock and you give me $2,000, guess what I'm buying? I'm buying more rock, baby. The real UBI costs could be around $100 billion a year, there's estimates saying. So I think what they're doing is they're spinning it like, hey, we're already paying $92 billion in social programs that aren't fixing problems. This is almost like a transfer. We're going to transfer welfare, rent subsidies, disability, and everyone will get UBI. So then they have the funds to deal with their problems and prevent more issues. I mean, I could see what they're saying and how that might sound good on paper, but I think the math ignores the root causes. Nothing will change if you don't treat the disease, you're just treating the symptoms. If they're taking into account, say, low-income people that have addiction, mental illness issues that keep getting thrown in jail, say it costs the taxpayer $90,000 a year to keep them in jail. Well, giving them UBI doesn't mean they're not going to get thrown back into jail. It also doesn't mean the programs that are being funded, part of that $92 billion, cease to exist. So the cost of social programs and assistance will probably still be there. Can we really afford it? And what would happen to society if it was implemented? If you look at a lot of comments on the UBI topic, you'll see a common theme, like people saying, it encourages laziness, people won't want to go to work, things like that. And I think that's a fair point. If you have people working crappy jobs they hate, making minimum wage, maybe just getting enough money to scrape by, you'll probably see people to stop showing up for work if they get, $2,000 a month. They'll figure out a way to live on that $2,000 a month instead of going into a crappy job. Maybe it's an initial shock where you have people say, you know what, I'm done with this job. I just got $2,000 this month. I can live on that. I'm not going into my crappy job anymore. They might start trickling back as, the months and years go by. Maybe they find a better job. They get some different training and, move on with their lives. Or they might just stay on UBI. But maybe it's like what we saw happen to the labor force during the CERB checks. There were people that got $2K a month, didn't return to their crappy jobs, which then led to, the labor shortage narrative. It pushed large amounts of foreign workers to come into the country and start working these jobs, which the government justified because businesses were saying, hey, we don't have workers. Saying if we don't have workers, we can't make money. Disregarding all the other crap, the government regulations, the shutdowns. I'm not going to get into it right now. The point is, with this set for a new wave of mass immigration because there's a labor shortage, making it even harder for those who want to find a job to be able to find one. And what would inflation look like with all the extra spending? What would a rent cost look like? It's just human nature. If landlords know everyone's getting an X amount of dollars every month, they're probably going to manipulate the pricing of rent so that they can get that X amount of dollars every month from them. Could this program even be sustainable or work at all? Some economists say it could work, but it would also require a clawback of UBI payments from those who are earning higher incomes. This means everyone gets the check, but people in higher tax brackets would have to pay it back at the end of the year. So it's kind of like a smoke and mirror show, which would also create the divide once again about, between the classes. My tax dollars fund lazy people. People don't want to go to work, that will still be there. I think it would be fine if Canada actually had the money to pay for a program like this. Like if we had huge national surpluses, we had a fund like Norway or the UAE have, and you could hand out more of a dividend payment, like a profit sharing of the resources, so everybody just got the check regardless, no one had to pay it back. But that's not what we have here. It's not even what's being proposed in Canada. We're broke. The government keeps printing money and spending money. A $78 billion deficit was just introduced. How could we possibly pay for a UBI program? Remember, the government's going to tell you, this is an investment in people. Looking at the bigger picture, this is a shift that's going to push Canada more and more socialist as a country. It's a guise to make the majority of citizens feel like, hey, the government's here to help me. Meanwhile, the governments are the ones that are causing these issues to begin with. Now we have a government that wants to build us affordable housing because there's so many people in the country, it caused a lack of housing and prices to skyrocket, along with government regulations that stand in the way of building projects. But, this housing project's different they're doing. It's not commie block housing. It's not socialist housing like you've seen in Soviet Russia and China. They're not going to make giant apartments and jam tens of thousands of people into it. No. This is modular housing. It's not some dog crate condo. You'll have your own house provided to you. Everyone knows condos are a more efficient way of using land to get more people housed, but I think it would be bad optics for them to do so. So people will get their housing provided to them from the government. They will get their income provided to them from the government. They'll get their health care, their food, their transportation, whatever. We're becoming more dependent on the government. When we become more dependent on the government, we give up our power. We give up our freedom to choose. We're giving up our voice. How far are we really from a socialist communist era in Canada? We keep getting further and further from free markets to centralized control. Look at who's pushing these agendas. All these politicians connected to WEF and globalist ideology. If the finance minister's happy to run huge deficits, ask why. If policymakers link to global institutions that favor managed transitions, ask why. For a lot of people, UBI probably sounds really good right now. The reality is, there's massive costs. There's political fallout, unexpected inflation, rent jumps, more government power. There's a lot of things people aren't going to look at 5 years down the road. Question everything. Be skeptical. I fear they're going to use this in the next election. It's going to be the biggest promise offered by the Liberal government. And I think a lot of people are going to find it very popular. Free money coming from the government every month. They're not looking at the consequences that's going to happen from this. After all, if you can't afford to live right now, they're not going to be concerned with what life looks like in the coming years. And any party that speaks out against it, well, the Liberals will say, well, they're against helping the people. They don't want you to get help. They want you to stay poor. They want you to not have jobs. That's what they're going to say. It's going to land the Liberals a majority government, another 4 years in power, another 4 years of the country declining. It will keep pushing separatist ideologies in Quebec and the West, bringing us closer to the end of Canada rather than a united, thriving nation. Please question everything. Be skeptical. Let me know what you think about UBI. You think it's a good idea? Do you think it's a bad idea? Can we afford it? I'm Bert Beaverman. This is The Damn Report. And I'll see you tomorrow.